guys, welcome to another episode of Tea from the Galaxy, a thirst-quenching podcast for the girls, gays, theys, and astrology baes, where we talk about anything and everything through an astrological lens. So I am back from a much-needed hibernation break. I didn't think I would take this long of a break. I thought I was only going to take like 2 or 3 weeks off. It ended up being, almost 2 months, like a month and a half. But as time was going on, I really wanted to get this episode out for you guys because we are in the midst of eclipse season. And as an astrologer, even though I needed to take a break from just working 24/7 every day, astrology is my passion, and there's a lot of shit that's happening in this world right now and people's personal lives on a global level, on a societal scale. There's a lot that's shifting, and I feel like me having this astrological knowledge, I feel like a duty and an honor to share with you guys what's happening, what's coming towards us, especially because we're in the middle of eclipse season. So if things have been feeling like either chaotic, crazy, a lot of heightened emotions, or things are moving extremely fast, if you feel lost, confused, dazed, don't really know what's happening, you just feel like you're floating through life right now, welcome to eclipse season. A lot is shifting around us, and we can either feel like we are not catching up to it, not caught up to it, or we feel like frozen in time while everything else is moving around us. So I definitely want to kind of explain what's happening this month. The full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo is happening on the 3rd. We're still going to feel extreme changes, in the weeks after that too. So definitely, keep in mind and keep note of what types of things are happening, people that you're meeting, conversations that you're having, things being presented to you. And let's just get into it, okay? Starting off the month, we are walking into the beginning of this month, Pisces season. The sun is in Pisces, the moon is in Leo. Mercury is in Pisces retrograde, so that is a big important piece for this whole month, because this whole month there's a Mercury retrograde story happening. On top of that, it's in Pisces. Mercury is in Pisces. Mercury does not like being in Pisces, let alone Mercury in Pisces retrograde. It's like a retrograde on steroids, basically, because Mercury is a planet of communication. When Mercury is in Pisces, it's all like mumbo jumbo. We're not really speaking fluidly or correctly. We are thinking, and our thoughts are way more being weighed down by our emotions. And we're kind of like heads in the clouds type of La La Land type of vibe. So now imagine that energy retrograde now. So it's that times 10. Another reason that I wanted to put out this episode, because I've already been seeing so many Mercury retrograde shit happening since Mercury station retrograde, like last week. So I'm like, whoa, let's talk about this Mercury retrograde, because this one is super duper serious and messy. Venus is in Pisces as well, so touching Mercury, so that's bringing now that mumbo jumbo is affecting our relationships and our financial situations. Definitely not a good time at the beginning of the month or this month period to really sign any contracts, make any super important financial decisions. And Mars is in Aquarius at 29 degrees. Jupiter's in Cancer, retrograde. Saturn is in Aries. Uranus is in Taurus. Neptune is in Aries. Pluto is in Aquarius. So that is what the beginning of the month is looking like. On the 2nd, Mars moves into Pisces. So Mars is the planet of our motivations. It's what motivates us as a collective and on a personal level too. And it's also our sexual desires, but it's like the fire underneath our booties, right? It's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the motivation behind this? What is my drive? What are my ambitions? How am I moving? How am I acting and working towards my goals? So when Mars is in Pisces, we're feeling a little bit less driven than usual, because Pisces is a very free-flowing sign. It's mutable water. So just imagine like a sparkly, calm lake or calm ocean, like in the Bahamas or something. That's how I imagine Pisces, like very deep, but also very just free flowing. And Pisces Also, being a mutable sign, they don't really like to follow a certain strict or rigid schedule. They like to do what they want to do. They're very emotionally moved. So when a planet like Mars that rules our motivations and how we're acting is in a water sign, especially like Pisces, our emotions are definitely weighing us down and affecting our motivations and motivation levels. So the good part of this is if you are feeling very passionate about something, if you're working on something creative, something that really lights up your soul and really makes you happy, or connecting with bodies of water, or like connecting with the beach and things that Pisces rules, creativity, music, art, painting, like whatever type of thing that kind of ignites your inner child and ignites that fairy tale like life within you. If you are working towards things like that, romance, things that bring romance and happiness into your life, this is going to be a really, really nice time and a nice transit for you. But these are good things to be working on while Mars is in Pisces. And Mars is going to be in Pisces until April 9th. So keep that in mind. The whole month of March, basically. The downside of this is if you are letting your emotions get the best of you, you are not going to be productive this month. It's going to weigh you down. You're going to feel depressed. For how romantic and high that Pisces can feel, they equally feel so deep to the depths of the ocean, like so low. And if you are letting your emotions get the best of you this month, you're going to be very unproductive, and it's going to be hard for you to get things done, or you're going to be stuck in your head, stuck in your emotions. You're going to feel like you are just in this tsunami of emotions and it's getting the best of you. So this is definitely a good time this month to be aware of your emotions, what's emotionally moving you, and prioritize what emotionally moves you in a positive way instead of feeding the negative thoughts of what emotionally moves you negatively, if that makes sense. I have a Cancer Mars, so I'm kind of used to this like energy of my emotions getting the best of me, and I will say this is a learning lesson for people who have especially Cancers and Pisces Mars. Like if you are feeling not good about yourself, it is very hard for you to get shit done or like kind of balance everything that you have in your life. You are so either going into hermit mode or just focusing on yourself or just like being emo and it's hard to pull ourselves out of that. But a good way to pull yourselves out of that is to focus on things that make you happy, like especially creative things too. And another thing that's kind of gonna heighten this transit as well is because we're in the middle of eclipse season, and especially an eclipse that's happening in Virgo, which is the opposite Pisces. So definitely I see a lot of people drowning in their emotions and kind of being weighed down by that. On the 3rd is the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo at 12 degrees. So a lunar eclipse is like a full moon on steroids. When I describe a full moon, I describe it as 1, a moment of releasing, 2, a culmination of events things that were started around the new moon around 6 months prior. You're going to start to see that come into fruition now. You're going to see the results start to blossom and bloom. You're going to see things are going to start making sense, or things are going to start actually moving in a different direction, or making moves or succeeding for you at this time, especially if you've been working on it over the 6 months. So the new moon is like when you plant the seed, and then the 6 months in between is kind of like the watering and the sunlight, and then the full moon is the flower that's blossoming, if that makes sense. And then also another thing that full moons do is it illuminates problems, issues that need addressing or need change. Because when you think about a full moon in the sky, it's very bright, right? It literally, the night sky is dark, but the full moon illuminates down on earth. So a lot of the times full moons illuminate issues that's happening in people's lives, or they expand problems, and they kind of make it in a more dramatic way. The universe is dramatizing issues in our lives. That's why a lot of times around eclipses, like, it's chaotic. I work in a bar, it's always chaotic. I know people who work in hospitals, they say eclipses are chaotic. Cops say around eclipses they're making the most arrests and dealing with the most things, you know. So this is literally what's happening. The universe is kind of shining a spotlight on things that you need fixing in your life. So first things first, let's reflect on the new moon that happened 6 months prior. And like what I said, this full moon lunar eclipse is that on steroids because it's a lunar eclipse. It's a full moon lunar eclipse. So everything that I just said is that times 10. So the new moon solar eclipse, which was a new moon on steroids, happened on September 21st, 2025 at 29 degrees. So I remember this was an extremely important one and a very talked about one, and had a lot of fear mongering surrounding it because one, the solar eclipse happened at 29 degrees. In astrology, the 29 degrees is potent degree. It kind of represents the destruction of an old, so we can walk into a new. The 29 degrees kind of reminds me of like the Tower card in a way, that everything is coming to an end so we can move on to the next chapter and start anew and build from the bottom up, kind of like the energy that's surrounding this. So new moons are usually a time of new beginnings, but this new moon solar eclipse had a very much the starting of the end feeling. Another thing that was happening on this solar eclipse was opposite Saturn in Pisces at 28 degrees and Neptune in Aries at 0 degrees. So this was another gray cloud on top of our heads because it was opposite Saturn. So it brought about a lot of serious topics. And opposite Neptune, it brought about a lot of delusional things, a lot of spiritual warfare, a lot of religious warfare. So let's think about what was happening around in September and during the eclipse portal of that time period. Things that were being talked about, the Epstein files, the Charlie Kirk assassination. This was the number one thing in my mind. I remember as it was happening, the Charlie Kirk assassination and everything like that, that I was like, this is part of this Pisces Virgo eclipse cycle storyline, and I'm keeping that in note. So there was also talks about the government shutdown, and then the government shutdown on October 1st. There was a church attack in Michigan, and Trump saying he's sending troops to Portland, Oregon, and threatening to send more troops out to Democratic cities. And also the Gaza war was continuing as well. So the thing with eclipse cycle in Virgo and Pisces is the Virgo Pisces axis is all about the balance between physical health and what's happening on an earthly plane, and spiritual health and what's happening in a spiritual plane. So it's what we can see and what we can't see. And this lunar eclipse is definitely shining a light on all things that is happening on Earth right now, and what's being shaded in an unbalance, honestly, is our spiritual health and tapping in spiritually and tapping into our intuition. So that is a heavy emphasis right now under this lunar eclipse. Don't fall into the trap of everything that's happening on an earthly plane. Like, really still connect with your spirituality, still connect with your intuition. Know that what you are seeing on an earthly plane, there's more than what meets the eye. Don't fall for propaganda. Don't doom scroll and then you're giving out like energy, a negative energy. You know, it's very hard. There's a lot of shit that's happening right now, but the more that you doom scroll, the more that you're watching the news, the more that you're feeding into it, the more anxious and depressed and angry you're just going to be. And that's exactly what the higher ups and these evil people want from us. They want to keep us in these lower negative frequencies. And a big emphasis right now under this lunar eclipse is to find the balance into your spirituality again, and find that balance into tapping into your intuition, and find the balance of tapping into a more romantic, happy, higher frequency feeling and light. Another thing with this full moon lunar eclipse is, finding the balance between health, spiritual health, and physical health. I think there's going to be a lot of things talked about around this time surrounding healthcare and the service industry, spirituality and religion, delusion and fantasy versus reality. We're definitely not getting a full picture of things because the ruler of this lunar eclipse in Virgo is Mercury, which is in Pisces retrograde. And like what I said, this is like the ultimate Delulu aspect. Things are being brought to us, conversations are being had, but we're not getting the full picture of things. So definitely remember that under this full moon lunar eclipse, don't make decisions off of heightened emotions right now. We are feeling like we are going to want to, especially because Mars is in Pisces, and because there's a lot that's shifting, there's a lot that's moving, there's a lot that's happening, a lot of heightened emotions that we're kind of like, fuck it, let me just do this. And I'm really urging a lot of people to kind of take it easy, because advice that I give during eclipse season is to let go and flow. And advice that I give during Mercury retrograde is to rest, reevaluate, and reflect. So there's a lot of resting energy right now, reflecting energy, and kind of observing energy that's happening right now in the air that we really need to remember, and don't make any impulsive decisions. So I definitely think that is going to continue this month, especially the first half of this month, with the fantasy versus reality, what's real and what's fake, because I feel like that has been the biggest theme while this eclipse cycle has been bouncing back and forth between Pisces and Virgo. Because even with the Charlie Kirk assassination, there was a lot of talk of what actually happened. Like, we're not getting the bigger picture, and just as more time was going on, and like his best friend Candace Owens has been making this series of what really happened to Charlie Kirk and what's really happening behind the scenes. I feel like this is one of the first times there was an assassination that happened where most of the audience and the citizens don't believe the storyline that's being told to us on the news and what they're telling us what happened. We're kind of like, but that makes no fucking sense, actually. So what's really happening right now? Everything with the Epstein files, that there was big talks about that around the eclipse cycle back in August and September. And now that is a big subject of discussion right now. So I'm curious to see what happens over the next few weeks, if, people are going to start, going to jail for it, being put on trial for it. What's going to happen? This is a big theme. It's being talked about, or is it just going to be talked about? The church attack in Michigan that happened 6 months ago makes me worried about this lunar eclipse in Virgo in this month, because that is the epitome of eclipses between Pisces and Virgo while Neptune is in Aries. Because I've been predicting one of the things that's going to happen when Neptune is in Aries for the next years coming up. Neptune is in Aries now. Neptune was in Aries at this time of this eclipse as well. So Neptune rules all things spirituality, religion, but delusion and fantasy land. And Aries is, fighting, war, impulsive energy. It's fire, it's heat, it's moving head first and being, defending ourselves and going after what we want and what we believe in. So Neptune in Aries is fiercely defending and fighting for our spiritual beliefs and our religion, and thinking that our spiritual beliefs and our religion is right and yours is wrong. So I'm going to defend my beliefs through tooth and nail, even if that means I have to physically hurt you or go to war with you. So I think that was a literal manifestation of, a church attack of that energy, because we are finding the balance between, there's just so much happening with spirituality and religion. Since this eclipse cycle started, I just feel like it's been more. Like, I don't know, even in social media, I see just more people like either going to church, like the one extreme, and really devoting their life to God or whatever religion they believe in, but especially Christianity. I'm seeing a lot of people kind of move into Christianity and like giving and devoting their whole life to God. And then I'm seeing the complete opposite, where people are like losing all faith in the government and religion and living for their own. So like just losing faith in general. I'm just kind of worried that there's going to be some more wars. Like, this isn't the end. There's going to be more wars surrounding spiritual beliefs and religions, which is very sad because that is literally the opposite of what religion is all about. You know, if you really strip it down and go down to the basis of what every religion is all about, you can find core truths to every single religion. It's supposed to be about unity, peace, coming together, loving your neighbor, and taking care of each other, and, you know, tapping into the power and the God within yourself as well. But the plot has gotten lost, you know. So another thing I put in my notes too was the delusion and savior power of religion and believing in a higher power. So this is something that I've been seeing with between the Pisces and Virgo eclipse cycle, and what I've been sitting on is how religion can make so many people so delusional, and how people depend on religion to just, let's pray it away, let's not do any physical labor, let's not do any mental healing or, you know, checking in on each other, but let's just pray. Let's just pray it away. And how some people can be so and delusionally defend a certain belief or a certain thing that they were taught to believe because they think there is a higher power or man in the sky who dictates their life and their life after death too. How delusional people can be, that people will literally go against everything that they're actually being taught to fiercely defend and go to war for their own spiritual and religious beliefs, like, and hate another person because they don't share the same religious and spiritual beliefs as them. Like, it's so backwards. Like, I don't know, it's so delusional. But also, I am such a big believer in spiritual health and maintaining a spiritual health routine and regime, because there's such a saving grace and a savior like process to religion and spirituality. And something that made me realize that was, I was speaking to my grandmother on her birthday. She's a Pisces. She actually has a Pisces stellium, and she is one of the strongest women that I know, but she was put through a lot throughout her whole life. You know, she's from Italy. Stories that she told me during World War II to later in her life, to just, you know, everything that she's been through in her life. I'm just like, wow, you were so strong. And she believes it's because God gave her everything and every problem, good or bad, in her life. And God and the saints gave that to her, like, for a reason, you know, like, because God believes that she has the strength to just push through it and overcome it, which is so crazy, isn't the word, but crazy, like how you find strength to get through one of the hardest things, some really hard time periods in your life, because you believe that there is a higher power that is pushing you through that and putting you through that and pushing you through that, guiding you through that and giving you support through that. Like, that is some serious spiritual power, you know? So, and that just goes to show the power of the mind and the power of spirit. That is definitely a thing that I have been reflecting on, especially during these eclipses over the past, you know, couple weeks. But I feel like that is a thing from this eclipse cycle overall. This eclipse cycle is almost done. Like, after this one on the 3rd, I think we're getting maybe one or two more in the Pisces Virgo eclipse cycle, and then that's it. It's a wrap up. So we're kind of 3/4 done with this eclipse storyline. It's not fully done yet, but that is a big lesson and thing and theme that I have been noticing about this eclipse cycle. But also things surrounding health and healthcare. I think a big light is being shown on the discrepancies of, you know, healthcare, health insurance, people not trusting the government, not trusting healthcare, not really even wanting insurance anymore, because what the fuck is the point? I think also the distrust with the government and, like, what is actually being put in our food, what actually are we eating, things like that. Uranus is in Taurus and is doing a wrap up before it moves into Gemini, I think in May or June. So this is like the last wrap up of Uranus and Taurus, which a big theme with Uranus and Taurus has been I feel like a lot of like genetically modifying foods, lab grown meat, more vegan things has been coming out. Just there's been a lot of good things surrounding food and agriculture, but also a lot of not good things that's affecting our food and agriculture. So I think with the combination of this eclipse cycle and the final push of Uranus and Taurus at the last degrees, there is a lot of realizing how food has and agriculture has changed surrounding us and how we need to do something different. We need to take care of ourselves better. So yeah, that's that. Also, and the last thing, I wouldn't be surprised if some new turning points news came out about surrounding Charlie Kirk and his assassination. On the 5th, the sun in Pisces trines Jupiter in Cancer at 15 degrees. So I really like this aspect, okay? This definitely lightens the heavy load of what the eclipse season is. The sun represents us and our collectives, our identities, and Jupiter is the planet of luck, opportunities, optimism, and Cancer thrives there. I will say it is retrograde, so it's not blessing us as much as it usually would, but still giving us blessings, and some positivity. So, anytime a planet is retrograde, I always like to look back on when it was this degrees in the past, because you can kind of start or maybe find similar themes popping up now. So, for example, the last time Jupiter was in Cancer at 15 degrees was around the third week of August 2025. So now that Jupiter is retrograde and it's hitting the 15th degree of Cancer again, you can kind of think of what was happening around the third week of August, like, around the end of summertime. And you can kind of maybe those topics or conversations or people being brought back into your life again. But this time there is a nice harmonious trine to the sun in Pisces. So I think things are going to flow in a more better and positive direction, or things that are going to be brought up from that time period again, or it's going to start feeling good and flowing just, I don't know, in a just better way, or just things are going to be brought up again. And you're kind of looking at it through a different light, especially because the sun is in Pisces, Venus is in Pisces, Mercury's in Pisces. You kind of, things could be brought up again, and you're like looking at it like, like almost like over romanticizing it. So definitely be aware of that. I'm not saying make any impulsive decisions, but I'm saying you could be feeling like you're over romanticizing something that happened during the summertime, or something is being brought up again from the summertime that you're kind of like, is it meant to be? Or maybe things are starting to flow again. That's all what I'm saying. And it's also very important, whatever was happening around the third week of August and the end of summer, because Jupiter has been sitting at 15 degrees and is going to be sitting at 15 degrees for a hot minute. Like, it's sitting here for a while, and like it finally moves into 16 degrees on April 5th. So whatever was happening around that time period in the summertime is being reworked and brought up now. And I don't know, reflect on that, because I don't know what that could possibly mean, but I feel like it means something important when I was looking back on this. So on March 6th until March 30th, Venus will be in Aries. So this aspect is very interesting, but let me just describe what a Venus in Aries means. So Venus is the planet of our relationships, love, our financial situation, how we're maneuvering in our relationships and financial situation. So how it affects our relationships and financial situations as well. So Aries is a fire sign. It's impulsive, it's go-getter, it's aggressive, it's passionate. So when Venus moves into Aries, we're definitely feeling more impulsive in love and spending money. So definitely be careful about that, because Mercury retrograde is happening. I'm feeling like a lot of people are going to move very quickly, or want to move very quickly in some type of romantic or financial situation, and you are going to be 3 steps ahead to set yourself back 10 steps. Like, it is, I just don't think it's a good time right now. But especially if something is like lighting you up, or you're feeling very passionate or excited about something, which you could be while Venus is in Aries, you're just feeling like you want to take it to the next level and the next step, and you're like, let's get into it. But with Mercury in retrograde right now in Pisces, I just feel like anything that started right now or that you're going to jump into, it's definitely going to be revisited in the future and reworked. So definitely just be careful. And then another thing on top of it is Venus doesn't just go into Aries and it's, doing its thing unscathed, it's as soon as it enters Aries, it makes a conjunction to Neptune and Saturn. So this is very noteworthy, and it's going to affect the first half of this, Venus ingress, because it's not going to be as happy as it normally would, Venus, and as excited or even as passionate. Saturn definitely brings that gray cloud into our relationships and financial situations, and Neptune brings that delusion. So, I mean, it's kind of like good that Neptune kind of balances out. Neptune waters down Saturn's, gray cloud, and Saturn kind of stabilizes Neptune's delusions. But nevertheless, Saturn does bring a lot of seriousness to Venus as Venus tries to make its merry way through Aries. So, it can bring a lot of seriousness, a lot of problems, frustrations, altercations, disagreements, but also it can bring a lot of seriousness in the way where you're seriously wanting to get, tie someone down or take it to the next level, the next step with someone, or, really solidifying boundaries and foundations with a person that you see yourself being long-term with. So, a Venus touching Saturn aspect is nice if you're trying to build long-term with someone. And the Neptune here can make it feel very good too. But also Venus touching Neptune while Mercury is retrograde in Pisces is another reason that I'm urging you guys to be careful with who you're getting serious with. I feel like a lot of people are going to want to be serious or take it the next step with people, or feeling like, I do see the rest of my life with you. I can see this moving forward. And we're just not seeing the bigger picture, So that is definitely, be careful. This is why another thing I'm saying, be careful of making very serious decisions or big decisions with money, especially like I'm just getting like couples moving in with each other, couples making big investments together and later on regretting it, especially if you're not married to the person. Like, this is not the time. Like, do not buy a house with your boyfriend at this time, do not I don't know. Aries is giving that impulsive, yeah, let's just do it without even thinking. And then it touching Neptune while Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, it's like, yeah, I just feel that I've never felt this way ever before in my life. Touching Saturn, it's like, yeah, let's start a family. I love you. Let's buy a house. Let's get a dog. Let's buy let's get a joint credit card. I don't know. I'm just seeing that happening, and I'm not feeling too good about it. On the same day, the sun touches the Mercury retrograde in Pisces at 16 degrees. So that's called a Mercury Cazimi. Mercury Cazimis are kind of like light bulb moments in our lives. So definitely to get a little bit more specific about where this light bulb moment is happening for you, or what type of topics or subject of discussions it's happening, definitely look at where Pisces rules in your chart to get more details about what this light bulb moment could be for you. But because Mercury is retrograde, whatever is popping into your brain is going to be re-brought up and re-thought out and reflected on and reworked later in the future. So like what I said, do not make impulsive decisions at this time. This could be something where you get the thought like, oh, I want to move in with my boyfriend. Oh, let's buy a property. Oh, let's get married. Like, you guys are having the thought, but instead of acting upon it, have the thought and sit on it, and then later just be patient. This is the thing with placements and all these planets that are going to be moving into Aries. We're going to lack so much patience, and it's going to fuck us over. You need to be patient during this time. Whatever thoughts you're having right now, especially in terms of money and relationships, just be patient with it. See, like, give yourselves a few weeks and kind of let things simmer down and see if you feel the same, because honestly, in a few weeks, you're probably not going to, or something better is going to pop up, or you're going to realize why you shouldn't have made that decision a few weeks, a few months prior. Another thing with the Sun conjunct Mercury retrograde aspect is, like what I said, something is being reworked, a topic is being brought up again, or a conversation revisited, especially from around February 17th, because this was the last time that Mercury was in Pisces, but direct. There's 3 parts to a Mercury retrograde story. It's the shadow period beforehand, when Mercury starts moving over the degrees and starts making its way through a sign. And then the second part is the retrograde station, where then Mercury kind of backtracks those degrees. And then the third part is when Mercury is direct again and goes over those degrees again. So like what I said earlier in the horoscope, anytime a planet is at a certain degrees and then retrogrades back to that degrees, I like to reflect back on what was happening during the first time that the planet was at the degrees, because similar topics, things, or people could be brought up again, and you're gonna be able to have a bigger like storyline of figuring out what you're supposed to be focusing on or what's coming towards you. So kind of think about what was happening around February 17th, on or around February 17th, and these things are going to be brought up again on and around March 7th. With the Venus conjunct Neptune and Saturn aspects, I also want to mention this as well. This is the first time that we're seeing Venus touching these planets in Aries. So keep note of it, because every single year when Venus goes through Aries again and it's going to make a conjunction to especially Neptune in Aries, keep note of that, because since 2011 we've been keeping note of what it's like when the planets are going through Pisces hitting Neptune. This is the first time that we're seeing Venus hitting Neptune in Aries. So as the astrologer that I am, I always recommend keeping a dream journal and keeping notes of what's happening, because you can find patterns of things that could be coming towards you over the upcoming years every time a planet enters Aries and hits Neptune or / end Saturn. On the 9th, Mercury retrograde trines Jupiter in Cancer retrograde in Cancer at 15 degrees. Keep note of what's happening. A trine is a harmonious aspect, so there's some free-flowing things happening, especially in like the creative realm. But this aspect happens again while they're both direct on April 3rd. So I just feel like there could be some positive thoughts, some things brewing and sizzling around March 9th that's going to be brought up again, and you're going to start to see things actually move and gain momentum at the beginning of April. So curious about that. Keep that in mind and keep note of that. On the 10th, Jupiter finally goes direct in Cancer at 15 degrees. So I am so happy about this. While Jupiter was retrograde for the past few months, this could have been a time, or should have been a time, where we were turning inward, reflecting on our spirituality, feeling gratitude for Jupiter and the universe for blessing us, and gratitude for everything that we have in our lives, and really reworking and imagining what type of blessings we want to receive, or we hope to receive, when Jupiter then moves direct and is in direct motion and ready to bless us again. Because like what I said, Jupiter retrograde, it's not like it was unlucky. It wasn't unlucky, but it just wasn't as lucky as it is, quote unquote, lucky, and blesses us as much as it does when it's in direct motion. So now Jupiter is moving in direct motion in Cancer. Jupiter likes being in Cancer, okay? It's very fertile, ready to bless us. So I like that aspect, and definitely, envision in your mind the types of blessings that you want flowing to you in the upcoming future, while Jupiter continues to be direct in Cancer until the end of June. On the 13th to the 17th, Mercury retrograde in Pisces and Mars in Pisces is touching each other and conjunct the North Node as well. Well, first things first, anytime there's a Mercury conjunct Mars aspect, I always think of verbal altercations, verbal fights, especially Mercury is in retrograde right now too, and Mars is in Pisces, which is very emotionally heightened. I just feel like a lot of people are going to be misunderstanding each other, and there's going to be a lot of fights over miscommunications or over delayed things, and then it sparks a fight. A lot of like being on edge with each other, or just moving with emotions, and it causing a lot of fights. Like when I think about, like, people sleep on the anger that Pisces can hold, that water signs can hold. But something that I think about is the Jersey Shore cast, like the reality show Jersey Shore. Most of the house was water, had water in their charts, that have very water dominated charts. The whole house was water and fire dominated. Like that's why it was so explosive, because they all were very sensitive beings. They're taking things very personally, and they fight about it. You know, that is what kind of the energy that I'm seeing, like just taking things very personally, taking things to heart, and fighting about it. Like as much as you love very hard, you equally fight very hard too. So I just feel like there's going to be a lot of verbal altercations and, you know, surrounding in that. But with the Mercury retrograde touching the North Node as well, I noted that it's best to reflect on past patterns and experiences in order to start anew. Use your past to forge a new path as motivation, wisdom, and strength to follow your dreams. So this is how I'm thinking the best way to make the most out of this aspect. Mercury retrograde, you know, not in Pisces, not the best aspect, and touching the North Node. The North Node is a point in astrology that represents our higher selves, you know, our destiny, our fate. So I feel like there's a lot of needing to reflect on where you came from to reconnect with where you're supposed to go. And with Mars there as well, we're having that motivation and that confidence boost to kind of work towards our dream life and connect with our higher selves and really believe, trust that you already have it, and trust that you got it, and trust that you are going to become the person in your dream self, the person that you always wanted to be. So I kind of like that energy. I like the confidence boost that Mars brings to following our dreams, but it's really best to know that with Mercury retrograde there, we need to reflect on our past so we don't continue making the same mistakes. Because if we're not reflecting on our past, I think this is going to be a time where past patterns and things from our past or people from our past actually enter our lives, and it's a test. Like, are you going to entertain this past lesson and repeat, or are you going to reflect on it, learn from it, dub it, and move into your higher self, you know? That's what I feel from it. And that's what I'm seeing. On the 18th is the new moon in Pisces at 28 degrees. So this is noteworthy because this is the first new moon that is not like an eclipse in Pisces since the Virgo Pisces eclipse cycle started in fall 2024. So this is noteworthy. And the ruler of this new moon is Jupiter in Cancer at 15 degrees, which it's direct now, which is nice. I'm liking that. It's trining Mars and Pisces, positive, confidence, maybe borderline cocky, but it's okay. Blessings flowing. You know, new moon is all about new beginnings and planting seeds of what you want to grow and blossom, especially over the next 6 months until the full moon happens. But the ruler of this new moon, which is Jupiter in Cancer at 15 degrees, is making an exact square to Venus in Aries at 15 degrees. So with the combination of, you know, a lunation happening in Pisces, which can be a little bit delusional, while Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, delusional times 10. Jupiter trine Mars and square Venus. A Jupiter square to Venus is not the worst type of square to have, but it does give cocky, it gives overindulgent, it gives extravagant, it gives doing too much and overextending yourself. It could give like actually extreme happiness and extreme positive emotions, but because you're feeling these extreme positive emotions, you're doing too much. Like, it's like you feel good, so you go to the casino to gamble and you're feeling lucky, but then you end up losing all your money, you know? So definitely be careful, but words that I put down surrounding this, feelings that we're having under this new moon, is cocky, lucky, over extravagant, delusional, happy, overextending, invincible, doing too much, indulgent. So definitely be careful with that. Be careful with what you're manifesting under this new moon in Pisces. I think it's a nice new moon to manifest abundance, but definitely be careful and specific with how you receive that abundance, because I feel like that square to Venus can really get lost in translation. So like you might manifest money into your life, but in a really bad way, in a really bad scenario, like, you know what I mean? So but nevertheless I do think it's a good lunation to manifest money in abundance under, and success, especially like creative success as well. But yeah, actually, I do kind of like this new moon. I think it gives a lot of like confident energy. And I believe that sometimes we need to have delusional, confident energy in our manifestation so we can actually receive what we're trying to receive, you know? On the 20th, Mercury finally stations direct in Pisces at 8 degrees. So Mercury retrograde is over on the 20th, but the Mercury retrograde storyline is not over at this point in time. It just means that after that, and until April 9th, there's still a wrap up happening of that Mercury retrograde story. So now that Mercury is direct, it's going to bring about like smoothing things out, especially anything that was started from February 11th until now, March 20th. So anything that was started came about, brought up, conversations had, people meeting. From February 11th until March 20th, you're going to start to see things making more sense or more movement happening from the 20th to April 9th and onward. But especially from the 20th until April 9th, anything that was started around the Mercury retrograde, shadow period in time, it's going to be brought up again. But this time you have more clarity because Mercury is not retrograde. And you should have done a lot of reflecting and reevaluating, that you have more of the answers on how to move forward and continue with things and problem solve. On the same day, the sun moves into Aries, so Aries season starts. The veil is being lifted. We're starting to be not as delusional. Venus is moving away from Neptune. There's starting to be a little bit more forward momentum, more motion, more being brought back to reality, and things making more sense. But I will say the sun right away then touches Neptune in Aries as soon as it enters Aries. So that does give a little bit of a delusional energy, like we're being deluded by something. But as soon as the sun separates from Neptune a couple days after, we're going to start to feel more confident, but definitely warning of being deluded as soon as the sun moves into Aries. And keep note of the things that happen when the sun moves into Aries as well, because this is the first time that we're seeing that, and we're going to continue seeing that every year, every Aries season. 21st, Mars in Pisces trines Jupiter in Cancer at 15 degrees. So I really like this aspect. It just means that the planet Jupiter is bringing luck and abundance to any pursuits, any projects, pursuits, motivations that you're working towards. And I think that Jupiter is just giving a big blessing. I think there's also could be a lot of focus on, because Jupiter rules things of like higher knowledge, spirituality as well. And, Pisces rules things of spiritual beliefs too. And being that there's this big focus on spirituality and religion, I feel like, especially this month with the eclipse cycle and everything, I feel like a lot of people could be feeling way more in tune with their spirituality, their spiritual health. This is a really nice time to get into like a spiritual health, routine, really tapping in, feeling more intuitive. finding power and spirituality, finding God, quote unquote, things like that. So I really think it's really nice to tap in, do something spiritual, really water your spiritual health around this time. I think it's really nice. I think you'll be able to tap into a lot in your mind. On the 23rd, Mercury in Pisces conjuncts the North Node in Mercury in Pisces conjuncts the North Node at 8 degrees. So remember how Mercury was touching the North Node in Pisces at 8 degrees earlier in the month? So now it's direct. So definitely I feel like similar themes are going to be brought up again. Certain things are going to pop into your mind, maybe similar conversations, ideas, but this time you have more clarity surrounding them. I feel like maybe during the retrogradation, we were feeling maybe a little stuck, confused, lost, nebulous. Now you could maybe find a little bit more clarity, know how to move towards things or towards something, or maybe leaving something alone as well. On the 25th, the Sun joins Saturn in Aries at 4 degrees. So Saturn kind of brings a gray cloud over our head. Venus already saw it going through Aries, kind of bringing gray cloud to our relationships and to our financial situation. Now the Sun is moving into Aries and hitting all these planets as well. So I think it's just going to be a little continuation of either a gray cloud over our heads and things feeling frustrating and like low energy. And that's another thing that Saturn touching the Sun can bring. Low energy, low motivation, and just feeling down on ourselves, Saturn is like that strict parent that, gives you tough love. So it's giving you tough love because it sees potential in you, not because it's trying to like berate you and put you down for no reason. But definitely feeling low on yourself. And yeah, a good side to this is it could be really good to like get serious about something. Like, this is a maturing energy. It is a, I need to get my shit together type of energy. I need to get serious about this. I need to really bring some structure, boundary surrounding this or this topic or this project or this job or this relationship or something. Like, it's kind of like, at like 3 a.m. when you get a burst of energy of like, you're like, I need to get my shit together ASAP. That's kind of like this energy, I feel like. So it could be motivating for a lot of people, or it could be overwhelming for a lot of people. Have it be motivating where you are putting structure into your life, and not overwhelming where you're procrastinating and feeling down on yourself, On the 26th, Venus joins Chiron in Aries at 25 degrees. So Chiron is an asteroid in astrology that represents our deep-rooted subconscious wounds. I like working with Chiron because I think there's a bigger picture to working with Chiron. It is the epitome of once you heal yourself, you become a domino effect of healing other people, because other people see how you've healed yourself, and it gives inspiration to other people, and it makes them want to heal like that as well. So Chiron has been in Aries since 2018. Definitely look at where Aries is in your chart to kind of gain a little bit more information of wounds, especially subconscious wounds that you have been having or needing to heal since 2018. When Venus joins Chiron, it kind of brings another added layer of how our relational or money wounds that we have are affecting our present lives. So that is definitely something to keep note of. Chiron and Aries is not new energy to us, but this aspect gets activated by Venus and Aries only once a year. So definitely something to keep note of. What relational shifts, financial shifts are happening at the end of the month. What kind of triggering things are being brought up, because you are being called to work on these things so you can heal yourselves and move forward. And heal others too. So I definitely think a lot of relational or financial wounds are going to be brought up at the end of the month, especially if you have later degrees, cardinal signs, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, Libra. You guys are going to be affected and hit the most by this transit. Lastly, on the 30th, Venus moves into Taurus for good. So I'm not going to touch upon this aspect too much. I'm going to do that for the April horoscope. But I will say Venus in Taurus is definitely a better feeling. Venus likes being in Taurus. It's at home there. It thrives there. So, and it's getting away from all the mumbo jumbo of what is happening in Aries. So, and the mutables. Venus in Taurus is good energy, bringing good energy into April. So that is that, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this horoscope. I am glad to be back. Let me know if you guys like these types of horoscopes, if I should continue them. I think they're very informative. I like listening to horoscopes before or at the beginning of each month to kind of see how things are coming and foot towards me, and what certain days I should do certain things and what days I shouldn't do certain things. It gives me a little bit more direction. That's why I love astrology, because it is a roadmap to our lives. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in next week's episode.